And for some reason, there's a red double-decker bus over there. That has to be a tourist bus.
英语你听得懂吧？你听不听得懂？
英语啊，我知道啊。
Discord。
Discord。
Escort Staggering。
Escort。哦。Good morning, folks, and welcome to the banks of the mighty Yangtze River, known as Hanyang in Chinese, which essentially just means the long river. Third longest river in the world behind the Nile and the Amazon. Historically, the only way to cross this river was by boat, but in 1956, they built the first bridge across this river. You may or may not be able to see it. It is just off in the distance. The sky is slightly murky. There is blue sky above me, but in the distance, there's still a bit of haze, maybe a bit of smog. Now that bridge, which was opened in 1956, was built in a joint effort between the Chinese under Mao and the Soviets under Stalin, back when the Soviets and the Chinese were good buddies. We're gonna go take a look at that bridge shortly, but before we get there, we'll take a look around at some of the other stuff around this mighty river. 这个水会高一点吧？
现在在涨。
现在在涨。
现在在涨水。
哦。
在往上涨。
是夏天的时候最高吗？还是？
一般在6月份一直到9、10月份。
6月份
到了9、10月份以后就开始，10月份以后就开始慢慢退。是
吧？会到最高的是？
最高的时候啊，它会涨到这个上面。
就在
那个我们可知道的就是这个底下的一半。哦。明白我的意思吧？
对，
这个底下的一半。完了以后你就站在那个上面可以看。它一般不会长到那个路面上去。是吧？几年都没有长到那个上面去。
是吧？
对。
好像是就几年的就洪水了吧？
这几年没有。
这几年没有，但是
没有，就是那个。
是98年吧
？16年。16年那个水比较大，
是吧？
涨得比较高。
哦。
再就是现在的防洪措施好多了，
是吧？
原来感觉好像就是它还不是这么完善，突然那个水大了以后，它就有点问题，
是吧？
现在好多了，
现在没什么问题啊。
现在基本上全部江两边，都已经给它做好了那个这种堤坝都很结实。我
的国家没有这么大的河。
你是哪个？
我是新西兰的。
新西兰新西兰
小地方嘛。
也不小，新西兰很好的。
很好，
新西兰就是
很安静，
人很少。对，是吧？
人口只有400万。
人很少，但是呢，那个地方的生活呢很安逸。
对，很安静，然后。
但是你可能在中国待久了，你不习惯那里。找不到人交流。我跟
你讲，我在
我把烟头。
好，不要紧。我是08年到14年住在武汉。
你的中文讲得非常好。
一般吧。然后我回去了，我就不习惯。真的。
因为是真的，这个你在这里了，大家互相见面有互动，大家可以双向交流一下。这个人跟人之间嘛，但是新西兰那个地方呢，因为人少，本身你们国家的习惯呢，也是大家各搞各的事情。
真的不一样。新西兰压力不大，没有什么压力。对，
我们这里呢，生活压力呢，
人多嘛。
人多。
对。
因为人多呢，本身它是应该讲是城市里头也搞起来了嘛，对吧？但是呢，你把农村这一大块让人进来了以后，就是实现那个共同，对不对？
对。
农村人口进来了，那就厉害了。对不对？新西兰，很好，真的在那里生活还是可以。
我觉得在那边，有小孩子可以。
你像那些海边上啊，
新鲜空气啊，
新鲜空气，它整个就是在太平洋中间，是吧？
对，非常。 好吧，那我继续逛逛。
好的，好的，好的，好的，好，
拜拜，
拜拜。
Right, our man back there, local friendly chap, tells us that in from June to what do you say, October, the water levels are higher than they are now. They can get about halfway up this building, but I can see there's more banks up there, so I assume at their highest they can push that area. But from what the guy said, yeah, in recent years it doesn't get that high. There's the man himself, Chairman Mao. This river, the Yangtze River, flooded in 1954, affecting more than just Wuhan, but especially Wuhan and another city called Jingzhou. And tons of people died. 30,000 plus people were killed in the flood. That monument behind us was erected in 1969. Mao Zedong wrote a poem, which I can't read, but it's there, basically to commemorate the works of all the emergency workers who helped out during the flood. And there's 1 million children around there because today is some kind of spring travel day. So it's a day where a lot of the primary schools send their kids out and about. And you can see in their little red outfits, they are coming to also commemorate those workers who helped out to save lives during that 1954 flood, and maybe read a bit of Mao's poetry. Happy days. Now, as I sit here enjoying a brief rest in the shade, I am reminded on all sides about the core values of socialism. Things like patriotism, dedication, honesty, friendliness, justice, freedom, democracy. Democracy kind of seems like a weird one in China, but I think their take on democracy is more like there's no emperor, it's a party. So anyone in theory could join the party and rise to the top. It's not like a monarchy where people are just chosen by blood. So, democracy with Chinese characteristics. We've now left the banks of the river, which are just across that way, and we're heading into what was the old foreign concession. You can see old Bank of Indochina. I'm assuming this was part of the French concession back in the late 1800s, early 1900s. So we're about to encounter a bunch of old colonial buildings, essentially. American consulate building built in 1905. Now Wuhan Talent Market of China. So yeah, a lot of countries had concessions here in this part of Wuhan. There was a whole big foreign community all along this area, which runs alongside the Yangtze River. The river itself would have been filled with gunboats, so small naval vessels from each of the nations, pretty much there to keep pirates and raiders at bay, and also just to protect the interests of each of the foreign concessions. One of the things that particularly burned the Chinese about these foreign concessions is just the extraterritoriality of these concessions. So essentially the people who were living here in these foreign concessions weren't subject to Chinese law. So yeah, they could get away with whatever they wanted. This one's an old Russian building which used to be the residence of Song Qingling, who is the third wife of Sun Yat-sen, who's a guy we will talk about in another video if you haven't heard of him, but that's where she used to live. And if she lived there now, she'd be right across the road from a Starbucks. 阿萨姆有吗？哦，那边。哦，好。4块吗？好，谢谢。No Starbucks for me. I swear I'm drinking a bottle of this stuff every day. That sign there just talks about how, yeah, who was it? The English, Germans, Russians, French, and Japanese all had concessions here in Hankou, which lasted for 80 years. And in case you were wondering who's in charge now, there's a kindly reminder for you. But this particular section was the Russian concession. Former Bank of England building, so maybe we're getting towards the British part of the foreign concessions now. It's nowhere near as big. If you know, Shanghai has a whole big bund which is full of the old foreign concession buildings, so we're kind of coming towards the end of it now. It's maybe been a kilometer, maybe a little bit more. Yeah.
话说的还可以啊。
会一些，但是武汉话我不太会。啊，只会普通话。会
普通话就够了。
对。这边天气还可以。
你是哪个国家的？
我新西兰的。
新西兰的。
对，我过来看一下这些有历史的楼房。
对。
这个原来是那个什么？
这是1909几年、10几年吧，应该是。是吧？10几年、20几年的时候修的。是吧？这武汉刚开埠噻，那个时候。哦。那个时候叫什么？就是欧美这些国家殖民地。那时候还没解放，中国还没解放。对。就是把这个江滩，首先要在这里修房子，这里风光好。是吧？
现在这些都是什么银行什么吗？
现在就是中国工商银行，工商银行，中国的几个银行。然后把它给他们用了。是吧？然后他们出一分钱，国家批给他们用。是吧？你是武汉的？我武汉江夏区的，武汉好几个区。对，江夏区知不知道？知道，军运会第7届军运会。那边有一个博物馆，我还想去，叫什么？对，中山舰。对。你去过没？我没去过，但是我知道，我很熟悉。对，我想去。因为我是那里人嘛。是吧？我看过他那方面的说明。中山舰就是当时中山舰是因为什么？因为那个日军轰炸武汉的时候，正是轰炸武汉的时候，对，打保卫战的时候。对。你在这里是工作吗？我是搞押运的，跟银行运钞的。运钞的？押钱的。什么意思？英语你听得懂吧？你听不听得懂？英语啊，我知道啊。Escort。Escort Secretary。哦，原来是这样的，你还会一点英语？我比较爱好，但是我。怎么说呢？我这个记忆力不好，我总是想，当时今天比如说七位数，我记成8位数了，或者记成6位数了。我学中文也是这样的，我还有一个软件，我天天就背那个中文字的词。对呀，太多了。英语一样的也有软件，现在蛮方便，想学很方便。所以说比较爱好吧，这还蛮好的。对。好吧，我继续逛逛。你去玩了。I think that guy said he's an escort. Is that what he said? I thought he said Discord. But anyway, he said he's from the area where there's a museum I want to go to with a boat, cool boat, which was sunk during the Second World War, which they salvaged, which I want to go to another day. So he's from that area. He tells me it's pretty easy to get to. You got to take a bus though, and. Yeah, he said most of these old foreign concession buildings are now banks, which makes sense because we've been past a few of them and they were indeed banks. So there you go. Wow, we're coming to the end of the concession areas now. It's been a decent walk along the river, and you can tell we're at the end because one of the more famous landmarks from Wuhan is just up ahead, and that is the Wuhan or Hankou Customs House, which is that building up there. I'm pretty sure it's got a bell which kind of tolls on the hours, but yeah, I haven't heard it along my walk anyway. So that's where all the taxes and whatnot were collected from all the ships, tariffs and whatnot from all the ships coming in and out of the Wuhan or Hankou port. And for some reason, there's a red double-decker bus over there. That has to be a tourist bus. Those are not a thing in Wuhan. Tour sightseeing bus of Wuhan. There you go. Come to Wuhan, jump on the red double-decker bus, visit the Customs House Museum. Right next to that Customs House is Wuhan's kind of most well-known shopping street called Jianghan Road. So just around the corner there. Should be pretty mad with people, although it's a work day, so maybe not too busy. Now with all these foreign buildings, it would only be fitting from a Chinese point of view to end that walk with that monument there, which commemorates the Chinese kind of recapture, reclamation of all these concession areas and ports and whatnot. So yeah, back in Chinese hands is what the placard says. Now the front door is most certainly closed, but it says the entrance is this way. So let's go have a look. Now, any place which is kind of really official or important in China, you're gonna need some kind of ID to get in. So I didn't bring my passport to this museum. It's a no, because you need to have some kind of ID to get in. So I wasn't actually planning on going to the museum, so that's okay. What I want to do is get to the bridge. We went there yesterday, but didn't go across. The bridge that the Soviets and the Chinese built together in the 50s. We're gonna walk across that sucker, walk across the Yangtze River. Well, we're off the bus, and I must say that's one of the things that's changed since 2014 when I left Wuhan, is that the buses are way less competitive to get on now. People are much more chill. People used to really compete to get seats. It was a real rush to get on the bus, but now people are much more chill. So that's nice. If you'd asked me back in 2014 what's one of my things I hate about living here, that would have been one of them, but can't say that anymore. I may have just talked myself into a bit more walking, because the app says over there I can take a second bus which goes to the bridge, but there's another bridge to cross before we get to the main bridge. This bridge goes across the Han River. I want to see if pedestrians are allowed across, because I've never walked across it. So it's one of the two rivers that splits Wuhan into three parts. So if I can walk across it, that would be a first. Well, we are walking across the bridge over the, is it Han or Hanshui River? It's a river which separates two parts of Wuhan. So if I haven't ever made this clear in the previous videos, Wuhan is essentially known as a tri-city, three parts. The name Wuhan comes from Wuchang, which is on the southern bank of the Yangtze River, and then Han comes from Hankou, which we just left, and Hanyang, which we are just coming to now. So Hankou, Hanyang, separated by the Han River. Yeah, that's where the name comes from. Makes sense, right? So we just crossed over into Hanyang. That was pretty easy, it didn't take long, pretty short walk, but a first for me. Now the walk across the Yangtze River is going to be a lot longer than that, but yeah, it's going to be worth it, I think. Now the public toilet, which we just used back there, it does have running water and it has soap, which is nice. It doesn't have toilet paper, which most Chinese public toilets, from my experience, do not have. But it does also have the core values of socialism on there, which is the most important thing. More important than toilet paper, that's for sure. Right, let's get on this bridge. Right. A couple of kilometers later, and we are officially approaching the bridge. I can see the bridge now, just over there. Our walk is far from done because the bridge itself is about a mile long, like 1.6K. So yeah, it's a good day for a walk, hence why we are here. Now, right next to the bridge is this park, which has got this pretty well-known tower in it. It's called Turtle Hill. The sign says Turtle Mountain, but it's more of a hill than a mountain. It's another pretty well-known little tourist attraction here in Wuhan, but that's not what we're here for. We're here for the bridge. It's been a thirsty walk, so I'm going through this stuff like water. Maybe I should have bought water. They charged me 6. Normal price is 4. I guess that's the inflated prices for being at a tourist attraction. All right, here we are. This is the bridge, folks. This is the bridge. The bridge that Mao and Stalin built. It was long known that there needed to be a bridge across this river. Even back in the 1920s, there was planning for a bridge which was going to cross the Yangtze River, because up until that point, the train lines from the north ran from Beijing down to this side of the river on the Hankou, Hanyang side, and then everything had to be unloaded and transported by ship across the river to resume the journey south. This bridge, we can see the traffic which is going across, but underneath this level there's another level with train tracks. So once this bridge was finished in 1957, trains were able to make the journey all the way from Beijing in the north to Guangzhou in the south without having to stop and unload. Prior to this bridge being built, there were no bridges across the Yangtze River, but since then multiple locations have got bridges. Nanjing has certainly got, I think, the second one, and even in Wuhan I can see another one over there. And off in the distance there, I'm not sure if you can see it, is another bridge, helpfully named the number 2 bridge, Yangtze River number 2 bridge, because it was the second bridge in Wuhan to go across the Yangtze River. This vantage really gives you an idea of the width of this river. It is pretty awe-inspiring. There's buses obviously across the river with the bridges. There's the subway lines, a couple of them go under the river, and you can also take these little ferries which just dart across the river for about 2 yuan. So it's a pretty cheap and easy way to get across. But it used to be that was the main way to go. Prior to the bridge's opening, if you wanted to get across, you had to take a boat. As we stand here on the edge of the bridge, you can really see the way the currents are swirling and why it's generally not a great idea to go swimming here. Now from here we can see quite a few of Wuhan's kind of big landmarks. We've got the tower up on Turtle Hill over there. There up there, that big building is Ludi, that big tall unfinished skyscraper that we went to the other day. And just over there is the Yellow Crane Tower, which is kind of Wuhan's landmark icon, which the locals don't really go to. I've been there before. If we run out of stuff to do, we might head there. It's kind of low on my list of priorities, but it's certainly if there's one building that's going to feature to advertise Wuhan, it's that one. So they started construction in 1955. They finished in 1957. Initially, the Chinese, after winning the Civil War, drew up some plans for a bridge. They sent them to Moscow, to the engineers there, because Moscow had more engineering expertise than the Chinese did. Once they were approved, they worked together to build the bridge. Construction took about 2 years, so opened in 1957. Here you can kind of see all 3 parts of Wuhan. So this is Wuchang on the south side, That part there is Hankou, and then where the water goes in there is that Yangtze River, which we walked across earlier. So we've walked all the way from there, across a bridge, up and around over here.
I think I've earned myself a good lunch. What is our time? 1 o'clock. Okay, need to get some food.
你们觉得黄鹤楼好玩吗？
黄鹤楼不好玩。
不好玩吧？
Wuhan's most famous little street food vendor street, if that makes sense.
So we should be able to find something to eat here.